The makeup artist's hand shook as Bethany Morrison screamed in her face. "I said natural glam, not streetwalker chic. Are you completely incompetent?" Naomi Richardson stood in the corner of the bridal suite at the Grand Plaza Hotel, watching her future sister-in-law terrorize the third professional of the morning. The hairstylist had already fled in tears. The nail technician had finished her work in record time and practically ran from the room. Now this poor woman, who Naomi had paid $300 for 2 hours of work, was being berated over eyeshadow. "Bethany, maybe we should," Naomi started. "Don't." Bethany's green eyes cut toward her like knives. "You're not helping." Naomi swallowed the rest of her sentence. This was supposed to be a joyful day. Her baby brother Troy was getting married. She'd spent the last 6 months planning every detail, writing check after check, making sure everything was perfect. The Grand Plaza had cost $35,000 just for the venue rental. The flowers were another $12,000. The dress Bethany wore cost $8,000, and that didn't include alterations. The catering bill alone was $22,000. $85,000 total. Naomi had paid every single cent. She watched Bethany examine herself in the full-length mirror, turning side to side in the ivory silk gown. The dress fit perfectly because Naomi had personally taken Bethany to 4 different boutiques until she found the one. The veil was custom-made in Paris. The shoes were Jimmy Choo. Everything was exactly what Bethany wanted. "Where's Troy?" one of Bethany's bridesmaids asked, scrolling through her phone. "With his groomsmen, obviously," Bethany snapped. "Probably drinking and acting like children." Naomi thought about her brother, about the gangly kids she'd raised after their parents died in a car accident 15 years ago. She'd been 23 years old, fresh out of college, working 2 jobs just to keep their small apartment. Troy had been only 13, angry and confused and grieving. Naomi had put her own life on hold to become his guardian, his parent, his everything. She'd worked as a receptionist during the day and waited tables at night to pay for Troy's private school tuition. She'd helped him with homework until midnight, then woke up at 5 to do it all again. When he got into college, she'd taken on a 3rd job doing freelance consulting work to cover his expenses. Her own dreams of graduate school had evaporated, but Troy had graduated debt-free. During those years, Naomi had built her consulting business from nothing. She'd worked 90-hour weeks, missed holidays, skipped vacations. But eventually, Richardson Consulting became one of the most sought-after firms in the city. She specialized in corporate restructuring, and companies paid premium rates for her expertise. At 38, she was financially secure, owned a beautiful condo, and had built a life she was proud of. All of it had been worth it to see Troy happy. Troy had met Bethany 2 years ago at a charity gala. Bethany had been volunteering, or so she said. She was beautiful, charming, and came from what she described as old money. She told elaborate stories about her family's estate, their connections, their wealth. But she claimed they'd cut her off financially when she chose to volunteer for nonprofits instead of joining the family business. "They don't understand that money isn't everything," Bethany had said during that first dinner with Naomi. "Troy gets it. He knows what it's like to build something real, to value people over profits." Naomi had been impressed. She'd liked the idea of Troy with someone who had values, who chose purpose over privilege. When Bethany mentioned that her estranged family wouldn't help with the wedding, Naomi had immediately offered to pay for everything. "Are you sure?" Troy had asked, but his eyes had been bright with hope. "You're my brother," Naomi had said. "You're all the family I have. I want you to have the wedding of your dreams." That had been 8 months ago. Now, standing in this bridal suite, watching Bethany treat everyone like servants, Naomi wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. But she pushed the thought away. Bethany was just stressed. Weddings were stressful. This was normal, right? "I need to see Troy," Bethany announced suddenly. "Someone get him. Now." But the tradition, one of the bridesmaids started. "I don't care about seeing him before the wedding. Get him. I need to make sure his tie matches my lipstick exactly." Bethany pulled out her phone and started texting aggressively. Naomi's phone buzzed. It was Simone, her best friend and the only guest Naomi had invited for herself. "Where are you?" "I'm at the hotel. This place is gorgeous." "Girl, you went all out." Naomi texted back quickly, "In bridal suite. Come find me? Room 2405. She needed someone on her side today. Someone who knew her, who understood her. Simone arrived 10 minutes later, knocking softly before entering. "Wow," Simone whispered, taking in the enormous suite with its champagne bar, the racks of bridesmaid dresses, the professional lighting setup. "This is incredible." "Naomi, you can leave now," Bethany said without turning around. You're making everyone uncomfortable. The words hit like a slap. Naomi froze. What? You heard me. We need privacy for bride time. You're not a bridesmaid. You don't need to be here. The makeup artist looked mortified. The bridesmaids suddenly became very interested in their phones. Simone's mouth fell open. Bethany, I just wanted to make sure everything is fine. You've done your part. The check's cleared. Now we need our space. Simone grabbed Naomi's arm, her grip tight. Let's go, she muttered. Now. Naomi let herself be led from the room, her face burning. Behind her, she heard Bethany laugh and say something to her bridesmaids, but she couldn't make out the words. The door clicked shut with a finality that made her stomach turn. What the hell was that? Simone demanded as they walked down the hallway. She's just nervous, Naomi said automatically. Wedding day jitters. That wasn't jitters. That was cruel. Simone's dark eyes were fierce. Naomi, you paid for this entire wedding. You've been working on it for months. And she just threw you out like you're nobody? She's going to be my sister-in-law. I don't want to start off on the wrong foot. You're not starting off on the wrong foot. She is. Naomi didn't answer. She couldn't. Because deep down, in a place she didn't want to examine too closely, she knew Simone was right. But she'd committed to this day to supporting Troy, and she wasn't going to ruin his wedding because his bride was difficult. Come on, Naomi said, forcing a smile. Let's go to the ceremony space. I want to make sure the flowers were set up right. They took the elevator down to the ballroom level. The moment the doors opened, Naomi gasped. The Grand Plaza's crystal ballroom was transformed into something out of a fairy tale. White orchids and roses covered every surface. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbow prisms across the ivory silk draped from the ceiling. The chairs were covered in white fabric with silver sashes. A string quartet was setting up in the corner. You did all this, Simone said quietly. You made this happen. Naomi nodded, unable to speak. She had. She'd chosen every flower, approved every fabric swatch, coordinated every detail. This wasn't just Troy's wedding. It was her gift to him, her way of showing him that all those years of sacrifice had been worth it. A wedding coordinator hurried over, clipboard in hand. Ms. Richardson. Perfect timing. I need you to sign off on the final setup before guests arrive. For the next hour, Naomi walked through the space, checking everything. The place cards were arranged correctly. The cake, a 7-tier masterpiece covered in sugar flowers, was positioned perfectly. The bar was fully stocked with top-shelf liquor. The photo booth area was set up with props. Everything was exactly right. It's perfect, Naomi told the coordinator. Thank you for making it happen. Thank you for trusting us with such an important day, the woman replied warmly. Your brother is lucky to have a sister like you. If only that were true. 2 hours later, Naomi sat in the third row of the ceremony space, Simone beside her, watching guests fill the crystal ballroom. The string quartet played softly as people found their seats. Everyone was dressed beautifully, the women in cocktail dresses and the men in dark suits. Naomi had worn a deep blue dress, elegant but not attention-grabbing. She'd been careful not to outshine the bride. But something felt wrong. The front row on the groom's side, where family sat, was empty. Naomi had assumed she would sit there. She was Troy's only family. But when she tried to sit there earlier, a coordinator had gently redirected her. I'm sorry, those seats are reserved for immediate family, the woman had said. I am immediate family. I'm the groom's sister. The coordinator had looked confused, checking her clipboard. I don't have you listed for the front row. Oh, here you are. Third row, aisle seat. Naomi had been too stunned to argue. She'd let herself be led to the third row, feeling like a distant relative instead of the woman who'd raised the groom. Now, as the ceremony time approached, the front rows on both sides filled with people Naomi didn't recognize. On Bethany's side, an elegant woman in a cream Chanel suit sat in the front row, flanked by a distinguished-looking man in an expensive tuxedo. More people in designer clothes filled the rows behind them. Wait, Simone whispered. I thought Bethany's family cut her off? That they weren't coming to the wedding? Naomi stared at the well-dressed crowd. That's what she said. Girl, those people are wearing real diamonds. That man's watch is a Patek Philippe. Those aren't people who got cut off from anything. Before Naomi could respond, the music changed. The wedding party began their procession. Troy's groomsmen walked down the aisle first, men Naomi had met only once or twice during wedding planning. Then came Bethany's bridesmaids, 6 women in champagne-colored silk dresses that had cost $400 each. Naomi had paid for those too. Finally, Troy appeared at the end of the aisle with the officiant. Naomi's breath caught. Her baby brother looked so grown up in his tuxedo, his face lit with anticipation. For a moment, all her doubts disappeared. This was Troy's happy day. That's all that mattered. But Troy's eyes swept over the crowd and stopped on the front row of Bethany's side. He smiled and nodded at the elegant couple. He didn't even glance at where Naomi sat. The music swelled and everyone stood. Bethany appeared at the back of the ballroom on her father's arm, the same father who'd supposedly disowned her. She looked stunning in her $8,000 dress, her veil flowing behind her like a cloud. As Bethany walked down the aisle, Naomi found herself calculating costs. The dress, the veil, the bridesmaids' dresses, the flowers they carried, the rose petals scattered on the white runner. Thousands of dollars of details, all paid for by Naomi's hard work. The ceremony was beautiful. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and partnership. Troy and Bethany exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising to support each other through everything. When they kissed, everyone applauded. Naomi clapped along with everyone else, but her hands felt numb. After the ceremony, guests moved to the cocktail hour in an adjacent room. The space was decorated with high-top tables, each one covered in white linen and topped with arrangements of white roses. Servers circulated with trays of champagne and elaborate appetizers. Crab cakes, beef tenderloin on crostini, shrimp cocktail. The open bar was 3 deep with guests. Naomi made her way through the crowd trying to find Troy. She wanted to congratulate him, to hug him, to share this moment. But he was surrounded by Bethany's family, being introduced around like a prize. Naomi, over here. Simone waved from near the bar. Naomi joined her, accepting a glass of champagne. This is the fanciest thing I've ever been to, Simone said. How much did this cost? Don't ask. That much? Girl. Simone sipped her champagne. But seriously, why were you in the 3rd row? And why is Bethany's supposedly estranged family here looking like they own the place? I don't know. Maybe they reconciled recently? Right before the wedding? Convenient. Simone's expression was skeptical. And Troy didn't mention it to you? We haven't talked much lately. He's been busy with wedding stuff. That was an understatement. For the past 2 months, Troy had barely returned Naomi's calls. When they did talk, it was only about wedding logistics. Were the deposits paid? Was the timeline confirmed? Had she sent the final headcount to the caterer? He never asked how she was doing or what was happening in her life. Let's get some food, Simone suggested. Those crab cakes look amazing. They were working their way toward the appetizer table when Naomi heard a voice behind her. Insisted on paying for everything to feel important. Naomi turned. 3 women stood near a cocktail table, drinks in hand. One of them was the elegant woman who'd sat in the front row on Bethany's side. Her mother, Naomi assumed. I mean, it's rather sad, the woman continued, not seeing Naomi just a few feet away. Troy told us his sister has no life of her own. All she does is work. I suppose throwing money at his wedding gives her some sense of purpose. The other women made sympathetic noises. Bethany said she's been completely overbearing about every detail. Calling constantly, micromanaging everything. They had to set boundaries. Well, you can't buy your way into a family, one of the other women said. No matter how much money you spend. Simone had heard it too. Her hand clamped on Naomi's arm like a vice. Walk away, she hissed. Right now. But Naomi couldn't move. She stood frozen as Bethany's mother laughed, a light, cruel sound that carried over the cocktail chatter. The charity case sister. That's what my husband calls her. We're just grateful Troy has us now. A real family. Something inside Naomi cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like a windshield hit by a stone. Still intact but damaged, waiting for the right pressure to shatter completely. Come on. Simone pulled her toward the exit. We're going outside. Now. They ended up on a terrace overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It should have been beautiful, but Naomi couldn't see anything except those women's faces, couldn't hear anything except that laughter. Breathe, Simone commanded. Deep breaths. They called me the charity case sister. They're terrible people. Troy told them I have no life. That I'm overbearing. Naomi's voice broke. I raised him. I gave up everything for him. And this is what he says about me. He's an ungrateful little... Simone bit off the rest of the sentence. Look, people change. Sometimes not for the better. But you don't have to stay here and take this. It's his wedding day. So what? He's treating you like garbage. His bride threw you out of the bridal suite. Her family is mocking you. And he's over there playing happy family with people who are laughing at your expense. Simone's voice was fierce. You don't owe him anything else. Naomi wanted to argue, but she couldn't find the words. Because Simone was right. After everything she'd sacrificed, every check she'd written, every detail she'd managed, this was how they saw her. As pathetic. As someone trying to buy importance. What do I do? She whispered. Simone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, that's up to you. But if it were me, I'd make them realize exactly what they're taking for granted. Before Naomi could respond, a coordinator appeared on the terrace. Ms. Richardson? They're about to start the reception entrance. You should come inside. Naomi followed the woman back into the ballroom, which had been transformed during cocktail hour. The ceremony chairs were gone, replaced by round tables covered in silver linens. Each table had a towering centerpiece of white orchids and roses. Crystal and china gleamed under the chandeliers. A dance floor stretched across the center of the room, polished to a mirror shine. It was breathtaking. And it was all because of her. The DJ's voice boomed across the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats for the grand entrance of our newlyweds. Naomi looked around for her assigned seat. She found the seating chart near the entrance, a massive display covered in calligraphy place cards. She scanned the names looking for hers. Table 12. All the way in the back corner, farthest from the head table. She found the table and stared at the place card with her name. She was seated with people she didn't recognize, distant cousins Troy had met maybe twice in his life. The family table, right near the dance floor, was full of Bethany's relatives. Naomi sank into her chair as the DJ announced the wedding party. One by one, the bridesmaids and groomsmen entered to applause and cheers. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. And now, for the first time as husband and wife, please welcome Troy and Bethany Morrison. The couple burst through the doors, arms raised, beaming at the crowd. Everyone stood and applauded. They made their way to the head table, waving and laughing. Troy still hadn't looked at Naomi. Not once since the ceremony. Dinner service began. Servers brought out the first course, a butternut squash soup with crostini. Naomi pushed the food around her bowl, unable to eat. The people at her table made polite conversation, asking her how she knew Troy. I'm his sister, she said. They looked confused, glancing at the family table where Bethany's relatives sat. Oh, one woman said. I didn't realize Troy had siblings. The crack in Naomi's composure widened. The main course had just been served, filet mignon with roasted vegetables and truffle mashed potatoes, when the speeches began. Bethany's father stood first, tapping his champagne glass with a fork. Good evening, everyone, he said, his voice carrying easily across the ballroom. For those who don't know me, I'm Richard Morrison, father of this beautiful bride. He launched into a speech about watching Bethany grow up, about family traditions, about the importance of finding your true place in the world. When Bethany met Troy, we were concerned at first. He came from different circumstances, but he's proven himself to be a wonderful addition to our family. We're proud to welcome him into the Morrison family, where he'll finally have the support and guidance he deserves. The guests applauded. Naomi felt sick. The crowd applauded. Troy stood and embraced Richard, smiling wide. Next came the maid of honor, who told funny stories about Bethany in college. Then Troy's best man, who'd known him for only 2 years, gave a generic speech about love and friendship. Then Bethany herself stood up, microphone in hand. I'm not usually one for speeches, she began with a laugh. But there are so many people to thank for making this day perfect. She went through a list. Her parents, her bridesmaids, her wedding planner, the hotel staff. She thanked the florist by name. She thanked the DJ. She even thanked the calligrapher who'd done the place cards. Naomi waited for her name. For some acknowledgement that she'd made all of this possible. And finally, Bethany said, her voice taking on a different tone, I want to address something that's been weighing on my heart. The room went quiet, sensing a shift. Today is about Troy and me starting our life together. It's about family, real family, the people who love you for who you are, not what you can provide. Bethany's eyes swept the room and landed on Naomi. Unfortunately, some people think money can buy them a place in our lives. That writing checks means they're entitled to be part of our celebration. Naomi's blood turned to ice. To those people, I want to say this clearly, your money doesn't give you a place in our lives. Troy has a real family now. The Morrison family. We take care of our own. We don't need anyone trying to buy their way into our happiness. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People were turning in their seats, trying to figure out who Bethany was talking about. Naomi saw guests whispering, pointing. Simone grabbed Naomi's hand under the table, squeezing tight. Bethany smiled sweetly into the microphone. Now we've had a small disruption this evening. A guest who wasn't respecting our boundaries. Security has been notified, and I'd like to ask them to escort the woman in the blue dress at table 12 out of our celebration. The entire ballroom turned to stare at Naomi. 2 security guards were already walking toward her table. Ma'am, one of them said quietly, you need to come with us. What? Naomi's voice came out strangled. I haven't done anything wrong. Please don't cause a scene. Just come with us. Naomi looked at Troy, sitting at the head table. He was looking down at his plate, his face red. He wasn't going to stop this. He was going to let his wife have her say, have Naomi thrown out like a criminal. After everything. After years of sacrifice and love and support. This was how it ended. Get your hands off her, Simone said sharply, standing up. She hasn't done anything. This is insane. Ma'am, you need to sit down or you'll both be removed. Other guests were pulling out their phones now, recording. This was going to be all over social media within hours. Naomi could see the headlines already. Woman thrown out of brother's wedding. Crazy sister ruins wedding reception. She stood up before the security guards could touch her. I'll leave. Naomi, no. Simone started. It's fine. Naomi's voice was surprisingly steady. I'm done here. She walked toward the exit with as much dignity as she could manage, head high, refusing to look at anyone. The security guards flanked her like she was a threat. Behind her, she heard Bethany's voice, bright and cheerful again. Thank you for understanding. Now let's get this party started. The DJ started playing music. People began to relax, to laugh, to turn away from the drama. By tomorrow, most of them would barely remember the sister who'd been thrown out. It would be a funny story. Remember that wedding where the bride had to kick someone out? Naomi made it to the hotel lobby before her legs gave out. She sank onto a plush chair, shaking. Simone appeared a moment later, furious. I can't believe that was, she is. Simone couldn't even finish her sentences. I'm calling an Uber. We're leaving. Right now. My purse is still at the table. I'll get it. Don't move. While Simone went back inside, Naomi sat in the lobby, trying to process what had just happened. Guests walked past her, heading into the reception, giving her curious looks. She was still wearing the wristband that marked her as part of the wedding party. Her phone was in her hand. She could call Troy, text him, beg him to explain. But what would be the point? He'd made his choice clear. Bethany was his family now. Naomi was just the woman who'd paid the bills. Simone returned with Naomi's purse and coat. Come on. Uber's 3 minutes out. They walked outside into the cool evening air. The hotel's grand entrance was lit up, beautiful and welcoming. Inside, Troy and Bethany were probably cutting the cake right now. The 7-tier cake Naomi had spent 2 hours with the baker designing. They were dancing to the band she'd hired. They were drinking the top-shelf liquor she'd paid for. And she was standing on the sidewalk, humiliated and heartbroken. The Uber pulled up. Simone opened the door, but Naomi didn't get in. Wait, she said. What's wrong? I need to make a call. Naomi pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. She found the name she was looking for, Monica Walsh. Monica was Naomi's attorney, kept on retainer for Richardson Consulting's legal needs. She was fierce, brilliant, and available 24/7 for emergencies. This qualified as an emergency. Monica answered on the second ring. Naomi? What's wrong? You sound upset. I need you to come to the Grand Plaza Hotel. Right now. It's urgent. What happened? I'm about to do something that might be legally complicated. I need you here before I do it. There was a pause. Then Monica said, I'm at dinner 2 blocks away. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Simone was staring at her. What are you doing? Naomi looked back at the hotel, at the lit windows where her brother's reception was happening, where people were enjoying themselves on her dime while laughing at her expense. I'm done being treated like I don't matter, she said quietly. Every contract for that wedding is in my name. Every payment came from my accounts. And I'm about to remind them exactly what that means. Simone's eyes widened. Then a slow smile spread across her face. Oh hell yes. Monica Walsh arrived in 12 minutes, still wearing the dress she'd had on for dinner, her heels clicking sharply on the hotel's marble floor. She was a petite black woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper legal mind. She carried a leather bag that Naomi knew contained a laptop and a portable printer. Talk, Monica said, steering them toward the hotel's business center. Naomi explained everything as they walked. The months of planning, the $85,000, Bethany's behavior, Troy's silence, the humiliation at dinner, being thrown out by security. Monica listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. The business center was empty, a small room with computers, a printer, and a large conference table. Monica locked the door behind them and pulled out her laptop. "Show me every contract and receipt you have." Naomi had everything organized in her phone and her email. She pulled up the documentation while Monica's fingers flew over her keyboard, pulling up legal codes and contract law. The Grand Plaza Hotel contract was first. Naomi had booked the venue 8 months ago, putting down a deposit of $10,000 and paying the remaining $25,000 in installments. The contract was in her name as the responsible party and primary client. "Here," Monica said, pointing at a clause. "The client must be present for the duration of the contracted event. If the client is removed or leaves before the event concludes, the venue is no longer obligated to provide services." "What does that mean?" "It means that when they threw you out, they violated their own contract. You can legally terminate the agreement immediately." Monica's smile was sharp. "What's next?" The catering contract came next. $22,000 for dinner service, appetizers, and late-night snacks. Monica found a cancellation clause. The client may cancel or modify service up to the point of delivery. Already served courses are considered complete. "They've served appetizers and the first 2 courses," Naomi said. "But there are 3 more courses, plus the late-night snack station, plus the cake cutting. All of which can be canceled right now." Monica made notes. "What else?" "The open bar, $5,000 for unlimited top-shelf liquor for 4 hours. The DJ, $3,000 for 8 hours of service. The photographer and videographer, $8,000 for full coverage. The flowers, $12,000. The cake, $3,000. Every single contract was in Naomi's name. Every single payment had come from her personal and business accounts. She had receipts, email confirmations, signed agreements. Monica sat back, a satisfied expression on her face. "Do you know what you have here? A lot of money wasted on ungrateful people? No. You have leverage. Complete, total leverage." Monica pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the hotel manager. Don't say anything, just let me handle this." The call was short and direct. Monica explained that her client, Ms. Naomi Richardson, had been forcibly removed from an event she'd contracted and paid for. She cited the specific clause in the contract. She mentioned the words breach of contract and legal action in a tone that made it clear she wasn't bluffing. Within 15 minutes, the hotel manager arrived at the business center with the event coordinator and the catering director. The manager was a tall man in an expensive suit, clearly unhappy about being pulled from whatever he'd been doing. "Ms. Richardson," he said carefully, "I understand there's been some confusion this evening." "No confusion," Monica said crisply. "Your staff removed my client from an event at the request of another guest. However, Ms. Richardson is the primary client on your contract. She has paid for this event in full. By removing her, you've violated the terms of your own agreement." The manager's expression shifted from annoyed to concerned. We were told by the bride that there was a disruptive guest. My client was seated at her assigned table, eating the dinner she paid for. Where's the disruption?" The bride said. "The bride is not your client. Ms. Richardson is. And unless you'd like to be sued for breach of contract and have this incident reported to every wedding blog and review site in the city, you'll work with us to resolve this situation." The manager looked at the event coordinator, who was frantically flipping through her own paperwork. "The contract is in Ms. Richardson's name," she confirmed quietly. "This is highly irregular," the manager said. "What's irregular is throwing out the person who paid for the event," Monica countered. "Now Ms. Richardson has the legal right to cancel the remainder of the services she's contracted. All of them. Immediately." The catering director paled. "But we have 3 more courses to serve, plus dessert, plus the cake cutting." "Not anymore. Unless you'd like to explain to the other guests why the service stopped, I'd recommend you start packing up the food that hasn't been served yet." Naomi found her voice. "I want the cake donated to a homeless shelter. All the unserved food too. Nothing gets thrown away." Monica nodded approvingly. "You heard her. Make it happen." The hotel staff exchanged looks. They clearly wanted to argue to find some loophole, but Monica's expression made it clear there wasn't one. "What about the photographer and DJ?" Naomi asked quietly. Monica pulled out more contracts. Both can be released immediately. Payment is for completed work only. They haven't finished their contracted hours, so they'll get paid for what they've done, but no more. The honeymoon suite, Naomi added. I booked it for tonight. Cancel that too. Done. Monica made notes. Anything else? Naomi thought for a moment. The late-night snack station was going to be set up at 11. Don't set it up. The open bar runs until midnight. Close it at 10. This will cause a scene, the event coordinator said nervously. The guests will notice. Let them notice, Naomi said. She was done being quiet, done being invisible. And make sure everyone knows exactly why the services are being terminated. Monica smiled. I think we're done here. Unless you gentlemen have any questions? The hotel manager looked like he wanted to argue, but Monica's reputation preceded her. She'd sued companies for millions over contract disputes. He knew better than to push. Well, handle it, he said stiffly. Excellent. We'll be returning to the reception to make an announcement. I trust your staff will not attempt to remove my client again. No, ma'am. Monica packed up her laptop and stood. Then let's go make this interesting. Simone, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, finally spoke. This is the most badass thing I've ever witnessed. Naomi's hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anger, yes. From hurt, definitely. But also from something else. Something that felt almost like freedom. The reception was in full swing when Naomi walked back through the doors. The main course had been cleared and guests were mingling, laughing, waiting for dessert service. The DJ was playing upbeat music. People were on the dance floor. Nobody noticed Naomi at first. She walked calmly to the DJ booth, Monica right beside her, and spoke quietly to the DJ. I need the microphone. Sorry, the bride said no open mic. Monica pulled out a business card. I'm Ms. Richardson's attorney. Unless you'd like to be named in a lawsuit, give her the microphone. The music stopped. The sudden silence was deafening. Naomi took the microphone, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She walked to the center of the dance floor. Every eye in the ballroom turned to her. At the head table, Bethany stood up, her face furious. What are you doing? Security. Security won't be removing me again, Naomi said into the microphone, her voice steady and clear. Because I'm the one who paid for this wedding. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My name is Naomi Richardson. I'm Troy's sister. His only family. The woman who raised him after our parents died. The woman who worked 3 jobs to put him through college. The woman who paid for every single thing you're enjoying tonight. She saw Troy's face go white. The venue you're sitting in? I paid $35,000 for it. The food you just ate? $22,000. The flowers decorating this room? $12,000. That dress Bethany is wearing? $8,000. The open bar you've been enjoying? $5,000. The DJ playing your music? $3,000. The photographer capturing your memories? $8,000. The silence was complete now. People were pulling out their phones, but not to record, to calculate. $85,000, Naomi said. That's what this wedding cost. Every penny came from my bank account, from my work, from my business that I built while raising my brother. And about 2 hours ago, the bride decided that I was a disruption. She had security throw me out of the reception. The reception I paid for. Bethany started toward Naomi, but Richard grabbed her arm, his face pale. So here's what's going to happen now, Naomi continued. I've just exercised my legal rights as the primary client on every contract for this event. The catering has been canceled. There will be no dessert, no late-night snacks, and no cake cutting. The open bar is closing in 30 minutes instead of at midnight. The DJ will be packing up after this announcement. The photographer and videographer have been released and are leaving. Gasps and exclamations filled the ballroom. The honeymoon suite that was booked for tonight? Cancel. The 7-tier cake that you were all about to enjoy? It's being donated to a homeless shelter right now, along with all the unserved food. You can't do this. Bethany shrieked. This is my wedding. Actually, I can. Because my name is on every single contract. Every receipt. Every payment confirmation. You wanted me out of your celebration? Fine. But I'm taking my money's worth with me. Naomi looked directly at Troy, who was still sitting at the head table, frozen. You let her throw me out. You watched security escort me away. You didn't say a word. After everything I've done for you, every sacrifice I made, you chose her family over me. So now you get to explain to all these people why your wedding is ending early. She handed the microphone back to the DJ and walked toward the exit, Monica and Simone flanking her. Behind her, chaos erupted. Guests were shouting questions. Bethany was screaming. The hotel staff was trying to calm everyone down. And Troy was finally standing up, finally moving, but it was too late. Naomi walked through the lobby and out into the cool night air. Her phone was already buzzing with notifications. Texts, calls, social media alerts. The guests were posting everything in real time. That was, Simone started. Necessary, Monica finished firmly. They violated every courtesy, every boundary, and every ounce of your kindness. They deserved exactly what they got. Naomi's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Did I just ruin my brother's wedding? No, Monica said. They ruined it themselves. You just stopped paying for it. A car screeched to a stop at the curb. Troy jumped out, still in his tuxedo, his face desperate. Naomi, wait. Please just wait. Naomi turned to face him. You can't do this, Troy said, his voice breaking. All these people, the vendors, we can't just... You should have thought about that before you let your wife humiliate me in front of 200 guests. She didn't mean it. She was just nervous. She called me pathetic. Her mother called me a charity case. They laughed about how I have no life. And you sat there and said nothing. Naomi's voice shook. I raised you, Troy. I gave up my 20s to make sure you had a future. And this is how you repay me? By letting them treat me like garbage? I know, and I'm sorry. But please, Naomi, you're embarrassing us. I'm embarrassing you? The words came out sharp and painful. Not the other way around? These people, Bethany's family, they're important. They have connections. I need them too. And there it was. The truth that Naomi had been avoiding. You chose them, she said quietly. You chose their money and their connections over me. Over the person who actually loved you. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is working 70-hour weeks to pay for your college. What's not fair is missing my own birthday to help you move into your dorm. What's not fair is paying $85,000 for a wedding where I was treated like a stranger. Naomi took a breath. I'm done, Troy. I'm done being your bank account. I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done. Naomi, please. Get back to your wedding. Or what's left of it. Your wife is waiting. She got into Simone's car before he could respond. As they pulled away from the hotel, Naomi looked back one last time. Troy was standing on the sidewalk, still in his tuxedo, watching her leave. Where to? Simone asked gently. Home, Naomi said. Take me home. The notifications on her phone kept buzzing. The story was already spreading across social media. By morning, everyone would know what happened at Troy Morrison's wedding. But for the first time in years, Naomi didn't care what anyone else thought. She was finally free. The next morning, Naomi woke up to 417 notifications. Her phone had been buzzing all night, but she turned off the sound and tried to sleep. She'd failed, mostly lying awake replaying the evening over and over. The look on Troy's face. The shock in the ballroom. The satisfaction of finally standing up for herself. Now, in the harsh light of morning, she scrolled through the messages. There were texts from Troy, dozens of them, starting angry and becoming increasingly desperate. There were calls from numbers she didn't recognize. There were friend requests from people she'd never met. And there were the social media posts. Someone had filmed her announcement and posted it everywhere. The video had been shared thousands of times. The comments were split. Some people called her petty, while others praised her for standing up for herself. Hashtags were trending. Hashtag wedding revenge, hashtag sister of the year, hashtag karma is coming. Naomi put her phone face down on her nightstand and stared at her ceiling. What had she done? Her doorbell rang at 8 in the morning. Naomi pulled on a robe and checked the peephole. Troy stood outside, still wearing his tuxedo pants and a wrinkled white shirt. He looked like he hadn't slept. She almost didn't open the door. Almost. We need to talk, Troy said the moment she opened it. Do we? Naomi, please. Can I come in? She stepped aside. Troy walked past her into the condo's living room, a space she'd decorated with care, modern furniture, art from local galleries, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Evidence of the life she'd built while he was busy pretending she didn't exist. Troy stood in the middle of the room, his hands shaking. For a moment, he looked like the scared 13-year-old who'd come to live with her after their parents' funeral. Then he spoke. Do you have any idea what you've done? His voice was tight, controlled. Angry. The guests left. The venue kicked us out. Bethany is furious. Her parents are threatening to cut us off. I thought they already had. What? Cut her off. That's what Bethany told me. That her family disowned her for choosing you. Funny how they were all at your wedding wearing designer clothes and real diamonds. Troy's face flushed. That's complicated. No, it's not. It's a lie. She lied to me and you went along with it so I would pay for everything. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Troy? Naomi's voice rose. Explain it to me. Explain how I spent $85,000 on your wedding, and you repaid me by letting your wife's family mock me. By sitting silently while I was thrown out by security. I didn't know she was going to do that. But you knew how they talked about me. You told them I have no life. That I'm overbearing. That I only work and have nothing else. Each word hurt to say out loud. Is that really what you think of me? Troy was silent. Answer me. Bethany said you were being controlling about the wedding planning. That you wanted everything your way. I told her it was just because you care, but you still told her family I was pathetic. I never said that. Her mother did. At the cocktail hour. I heard her call me the charity case sister. She said I was trying to buy my way into your life because I have nothing of my own. Naomi's hands were shaking now. And you know what the worst part is? You let me believe you needed me. That I was helping you. But the whole time you and Bethany were using me. We weren't using you. Then what do you call letting me pay for an $85,000 wedding while treating me like I don't matter? Troy ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. You're making this so dramatic. Yes, Bethany was nervous and said some things she shouldn't have. Yes, her family can be snobby. But you didn't have to destroy our wedding. Those people will never forget what you did. Bethany's father has connections. He could have helped my career. Now they think our whole family is crazy. And there it was. The truth that had been lurking under every interaction. Your career, Naomi said softly. That's what this is really about. That's not. You married Bethany for her connections. For her family's money and influence. And you needed me to pay for the wedding so you could look good to them. Stop twisting everything. Then explain it to me another way. Naomi's voice cracked. Explain how you're more upset about embarrassing them than about how they treated me. Explain how your career matters more than our relationship. Explain how you can stand in my home and blame me for ruining your wedding when you and your wife are the ones who ruined it first. Troy's expression shifted from angry to something else. Something cold. You know what your problem is? You can't stand that I don't need you anymore. You spent years being the hero, the martyr who sacrificed everything for her poor little brother. And now that I have a real family, people who can actually help me succeed instead of just throwing money at me, you can't handle it. The words hit like a physical blow. Get out. Naomi. Get out of my home. Right now. You can't just. I can't. This is my home. I paid for it. I built this life. And I'm done letting you make me feel bad for caring about you. Naomi walked to the door and opened it. Leave. And don't come back unless you're ready to apologize for real. Not for embarrassing Bethany's family. For how you treated me. Troy stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. You're going to regret this. When you're old and alone with nothing but your money and your bitterness, you'll regret pushing away the only family you have left. He walked out. Naomi closed the door behind him and locked it. Then she sank to the floor and cried. She cried for the little boy she'd raised who was gone now, replaced by someone she didn't recognize. She cried for all the sacrifices that had meant nothing. She cried for the family she'd thought they were, which had never really existed. And she cried for herself, for the years she'd spent believing that love and generosity would be enough. Her phone rang. It was Simone. Hey, Naomi said, her voice thick with tears. I'm coming over. Don't argue. I'm bringing breakfast and coffee and we're going to figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. Naomi, honey, there's a lot to figure out. Starting with the fact that your brother's wedding disaster is going viral and 3 news outlets have called me asking for your comment. What? The video of you canceling the wedding has been viewed over 1 million times. People are obsessed with this story. You're trending on Twitter. There are think pieces being written about wedding entitlement and family obligations. This is huge. Naomi's stomach dropped. Oh God. It's okay. We'll handle it. But first, I'm bringing you food and making sure you're okay. I'll be there in 20 minutes. After Simone hung up, Naomi forced herself to check social media again. The video was everywhere. People had found Bethany's social media accounts and were leaving comments. They'd found the wedding registry. Someone had even identified the Grand Plaza Hotel and left them reviews about their handling of the situation. The story had taken on a life of its own. Naomi read through some of the comments. Good for her. Nobody should be treated like that after paying for everything. This is why you don't let family pay for your wedding. Too much drama. The bride sounds like a nightmare. That poor woman was just trying to help. She's petty and vindictive. Who ruins their brother's wedding? The brother ruined it himself by not defending his sister. I can't believe she spent $85,000 on someone else's wedding. That's insane. Actually, $85,000 is pretty average for a wedding these days. The comments went on and on, strangers debating her life and her choices. It felt surreal and invasive and overwhelming. But buried in the notifications was an email from someone named Dennis Crawford. The subject line read, regarding Bethany Morrison's family background. Naomi almost deleted it as spam. But something made her open it. Ms. Richardson. My name is Dennis Crawford. I'm a private investigator specializing in background checks and financial investigations. I saw the news about your brother's wedding and something about the bride's story didn't sit right with me. The claim that her family cut her off, followed by their obvious wealth at the wedding, raised some red flags. I did some preliminary research, completely above board and legal, I assure you. What I found might interest you. If you'd like to know more about the Morrison family and their financial situation, please call me. I understand if you'd rather move on from this situation. But in my experience, people who lie about being cut off from family money usually have interesting reasons for doing so. Best regards, Dennis Crawford. The email included a phone number and professional credentials. Naomi stared at the message. Part of her wanted to delete it and move on. What did it matter now? Troy had made his choice. The wedding was over. She needed to focus on rebuilding her life, not digging into Bethany's lies. But another part of her, the part that had spent 15 years protecting Troy, that had worked 3 jobs and built a business and sacrificed her own dreams, wanted to know the truth. When Simone arrived with bagels and coffee, Naomi showed her the email. Call him, Simone said immediately. What's the point? The point is that something is very wrong with this situation. Bethany lied about her family. They set you up to pay for everything. And Troy went along with it. Simone bit into her bagel. Don't you want to know why? Maybe I'm better off not knowing. Or maybe you need to know the whole truth before you can really move on. Simone pulled out her phone. I'm looking this guy up. Dennis Crawford. He's legit, licensed private investigator, good reviews, specializes in premarital background checks and fraud investigation. This feels like I'm being vindictive. No, vindictive would be posting Bethany's phone number online. This is called protecting yourself and getting answers. Simone handed Naomi her phone. Call him. Just hear what he has to say. Naomi took the phone and dialed before she could change her mind. Dennis Crawford answered on the second ring. His voice was professional, friendly, and completely normal, like they were discussing a business contract instead of her demolished family relationship. Ms. Richardson, thank you for calling. I promise I'm not trying to insert myself into your situation inappropriately. But I've been doing this work for 15 years, and what I saw in that video set off every alarm bell I have. What did you find? Enough to suggest that you might want to know more. Can we meet? I'd prefer to share this information in person. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop near Naomi's condo that afternoon. When Naomi hung up, Simone was watching her with concern. Are you sure you want to go down this road? No, Naomi admitted. But I think I need to anyway. Dennis Crawford looked exactly like someone who'd been a private investigator for 15 years. He was in his early 50s with gray hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of neutral expression that probably helped him blend into any situation. He was waiting at a corner table when Naomi arrived, a manila folder in front of him. Ms. Richardson, thank you for meeting me. He stood and shook her hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. Professional. Naomi sat down, her coffee going cold in her hands. Before we start, I need to know, how did you find all this information? Is it legal? Completely legal. Public records, social media, corporate filings, property records. I didn't hack anything or break any laws. I'm licensed and bonded, and I wouldn't risk my reputation on illegal methods. Dennis opened the folder. Everything I'm about to tell you can be verified independently. Okay. Let's start with the basic lie. Bethany Morrison's family never cut her off. In fact, they've been financially supporting her for years. Dennis spread out several documents. Bank records, credit card statements, property deeds, all blurred to hide specific account numbers but clear enough to show the patterns. Richard and Patricia Morrison are worth approximately $42 million. Old money from real estate and investments. They're not just wealthy, They're the kind of wealthy that buys silence and influence. Dennis pointed to a highlighted section. Bethany has a trust fund that pays her $60,000 a year. It never stopped. Not once. But she said. I know what she said. She told you and everyone else that her family disowned her for working with nonprofits instead of joining the family business. It's a good story. Makes her seem principled and independent. But it's all a lie. Yes. And here's where it gets interesting. Dennis pulled out more documents. The Morrison family has a pattern. This isn't the first time they've done something like this. Naomi leaned forward. What do you mean? Bethany's older sister, Caroline, married 5 years ago. Similar situation. She told her fiancé's family that she'd been cut off, convinced them to pay for a lavish wedding. Then after the marriage, the Morrison family mysteriously forgave her and welcomed the new spouse into the fold. That marriage lasted 3 years before Caroline filed for divorce. Her ex-husband walked away with nothing. They've done this before? It's a pattern. The Morrison family is wealthy but extremely controlling. They don't like spending their own money if they can avoid it. So they've developed this strategy: have their daughter target someone from a lower economic class who has a protective, successful family member. The daughter claims to be estranged. The family member pays for the wedding to help out. After the wedding, the Morrisons reconcile and bring the new spouse into their world. But why? Control. Image. Entertainment. Dennis shrugged. Rich people aren't always rational. But the pattern suggests they enjoy watching others spend money on their behalf. It's a game to them. Naomi felt sick. So Troy was a target from the beginning. I believe so. Bethany met Troy at a charity event. One that she was working at specifically to meet potential partners from the right demographic. Young, ambitious, with a successful older sibling who'd be willing to help. You fit the profile perfectly. Dennis pulled out printed screenshots of social media posts. Naomi recognized Bethany's private Instagram account, the one that was locked to public viewing. A contact of mine was able to access these before the account was locked down yesterday. Look at the dates. The posts were from 2 years ago, right after Bethany met Troy. Found a good one tonight. One post read, Brother Troy has a sister who basically raised him. She runs her own consulting firm and is loaded but super lonely from what I can tell. Should be easy to work with. We'll update. Another post, dated 3 months later, Operation Wedding is going perfectly. The sister is eating up the whole estranged family story. She's already offering to help with wedding costs. Too easy. And another, from 6 months ago, can't believe how much this woman is willing to spend to feel important. At this rate, we won't have to pay for anything. Mom and Dad are going to love this. The post went on. Screenshots of texts between Bethany and her mother, discussing Naomi's desperation for family and how to maximize the payout. Plans for the wedding that included specific strategies to keep Naomi involved financially but excluded socially. Where did you get these? Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. A mutual contact with access to Bethany's private accounts before she locked everything down yesterday. These posts disappeared within hours of your wedding intervention, but I managed to capture them first. Dennis looked at her with something like sympathy. I'm sorry. I know this is hard to see. Troy knew. He had to have known. I have evidence suggesting he was aware, yes. Dennis pulled out more screenshots. Text messages between Troy and Bethany. Troy, are you sure your family will come through after the wedding? Naomi's spending a fortune. Bethany, don't worry. Once we're married, my parents will do the whole reconciliation thing and you'll have all the connections you need. Your sister gets to feel like a hero, you get access to my family's network. Everyone wins. Troy, I feel bad sometimes. She's done so much for me. Bethany, she's doing what she wants to do. Nobody's forcing her. Besides, she has the money. We're giving her a purpose. He used me, Naomi said. The words felt hollow. My own brother used me. I'm afraid so. And based on the communications I found, the plan was to gradually distance you after the wedding. Make you feel less welcome, less needed, until you naturally pulled away. Then Troy would be fully integrated into the Morrison family network and wouldn't need your financial support anymore. Dennis closed the folder. The question now is, what do you want to do with this information? Naomi stared at the documents spread across the table. Evidence of a calculated con. Of manipulation and betrayal by the person she'd sacrificed everything for. I want them to face consequences, she said quietly. Real consequences. Not just social media drama. Real accountability. Dennis nodded. Then I'd recommend you speak with your attorney. What they did might constitute fraud. The misrepresentation of Bethany's financial situation, the coordinated deception, the specific targeting, it could be actionable. Monica, Naomi said, pulling out her phone. Her name is Monica Walsh. Can you send her all of this? Absolutely. And Ms. Richardson? Dennis stood, preparing to leave. For what it's worth, what you did at that wedding took courage. A lot of people would have just suffered in silence. You stood up for yourself. That matters. After Dennis left, Naomi sat in the coffee shop for another hour trying to process everything. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications. More social media comments, more news articles, more messages from people she hadn't heard from in years. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. But now she knew the real story. And it was so much worse than she'd imagined. Monica Walsh sat across from Naomi in her law office, reading through Dennis Crawford's investigation folder for the second time. Her expression had progressed from interested to angry to absolutely delighted. This is fraud, Monica said finally. Clear, documented fraud. Are you sure? Bethany and Troy deliberately misrepresented her financial situation to induce you to pay for their wedding. They had a plan documented in their own words to manipulate you. There was intent to deceive, you relied on that deception to your detriment, and you suffered damages. Monica tapped the folder. This is a textbook case. What can we do? Several things. First, I'm filing a lawsuit against Bethany Morrison and Troy Richardson for fraud. We'll be seeking full repayment of the $85,000 you spent on the wedding, plus additional damages for emotional distress and reputational harm. Will we win? With this evidence? Absolutely. But here's where it gets interesting. Monica pulled up something on her computer. After you left yesterday, Bethany's parents sent me a threatening letter through their attorney. Threatening what? They want to sue you for emotional distress, damage to their daughter's reputation, and breach of contract. They're claiming you deliberately sabotaged the wedding and that your actions constituted intentional infliction of emotional distress. Naomi felt cold. Can they do that? They can try. But they won't win. In fact, I was hoping they'd do exactly this. Monica's smile was sharp. Because now we get to include all of Dennis's findings in our response. Everything about their pattern of behavior, about targeting you specifically, about the fraud and manipulation. And it all becomes part of the public court record. They won't want that. Exactly. Which means they'll likely settle quickly and quietly to avoid the publicity. But we're not settling cheap. Not after what they did to you. What about Troy? Monica's expression softened slightly. That's up to you. He's named in the lawsuit, but you can decide how aggressively to pursue your own brother. However, I'd recommend at least getting him on a payment plan for some of the money. He benefited from the fraud even if he wasn't the mastermind. I want him to pay back at least some of it. Not because I need the money, but because he needs to understand that actions have consequences. Then that's what we'll do. Monica started drafting documents. I'm also going to send a strongly worded letter to the Morrison family attorney explaining exactly what evidence we have and what will happen if they pursue their ridiculous lawsuit. Give them 48 hours to respond before we file our case. Will this get media attention? Almost certainly. The wedding video already went viral. Once the fraud allegations come out, it'll be even bigger. But we'll control the narrative. No trashy interviews or reality TV drama. Just professional, factual statements through proper legal channels. I don't want to be famous for this. You won't be. You'll be known as someone who stood up to financial abuse and fraud. There's a difference. Monica printed out several documents. Sign here, here, and here. As Naomi signed the papers, she felt an unexpected sense of relief. For so long, she'd carried the weight of being Troy's protector, his provider, his safety net. Now she was letting the law handle it. She didn't have to be the one trying to fix everything anymore. What happens now? Naomi asked. Now we wait for their response. In the meantime, you should prepare for some publicity. I'd recommend limiting your social media presence and not responding to any press inquiries directly. Send everyone to me. Over the next 48 hours, Naomi's phone never stopped ringing. 3 different news outlets requested interviews. A podcast host wanted her to tell her story. Someone approached her about writing a book. There were even 2 reality TV producers who wanted to film a documentary about the situation. Naomi declined everything and sent them all to Monica. But the story continued to grow. Legal bloggers picked up on the case, analyzing the fraud allegations and discussing the interesting intersection of family obligations and financial manipulation. One article titled, "When Wedding Generosity Becomes Exploitation," Got over 1 million views. Troy called 17 times. Naomi didn't answer. Bethany's family sent increasingly threatening letters through their attorney, but Monica responded with calm, devastating rebuttals that cited specific evidence of fraud. Then, 47 hours after Monica's original deadline, the Morrison family attorney called requesting a meeting. They want to settle, Monica told Naomi over the phone. They do not want this going to court. They do not want the evidence made public. And they're willing to pay to make it go away. How much? They're offering $75,000 to drop the case and sign a non-disclosure agreement. That's not enough. I agree. I told them $100,000, no NDA, and a public apology. What did they say? They're considering it. But they'll come back with something acceptable. Trust me. The final settlement came through 3 days later. $90,000 paid to Naomi, with $60,000 coming from the Morrison family and $30,000 to be paid by Troy in installments over 3 years. No NDA, but a mutual agreement not to discuss the specifics of the fraud evidence publicly. They wanted to avoid the details coming out, Monica explained. Which means the broad strokes are still public knowledge, but the specific screenshots and messages remain private. I think it's a good deal. What about the apology? They'll release a statement through their attorney acknowledging that misunderstandings occurred and that they're grateful for an amicable resolution. It's corporate speak, but it's something. Naomi signed the settlement agreement, and just like that, the legal case was over. But the aftermath was just beginning. 3 months passed. The story gradually faded from social media, replaced by newer scandals and dramas. The legal settlement had been reported in the news, but without the specific details of the fraud, public interest waned. People moved on to the next viral moment, the next controversy. Naomi, meanwhile, was building something new. The money from the settlement sat in a separate account, untouched. Naomi couldn't bring herself to use it for anything personal. It felt tainted, a reminder of betrayal and manipulation. But she also couldn't just ignore it. She was having coffee with Simone when the idea came to her. You know what I keep thinking about? Naomi said, staring into her cup. When Bethany had me thrown out of that wedding, the worst part wasn't the humiliation. It was the feeling of having no one. Like I was completely alone in the world. You're not alone. You have me. I know. But I spent 15 years believing Troy was my family. When I lost him, it felt like I had nothing. Naomi set down her cup. There are so many people out there who've lost their families or been cut off by toxic relatives. People who are dealing with estrangement and grief in this huge void. What if there was something to help them? Like a support group? More than that. A whole organization. Resources for people dealing with family estrangement. Counseling. Legal advice for people being financially exploited by relatives. Help building chosen families. Simone's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. And you could fund it with the settlement money. Turn something awful into something good. The idea took root. Naomi started researching, reaching out to therapists and social workers and legal experts. She discovered there was a huge need for this kind of support. Millions of people dealt with family estrangement every year, but resources were scattered and inconsistent. Within 6 weeks, Naomi had filed papers for a nonprofit called Second Family. The mission was clear: provide support, resources, and community for people who'd lost or left their families of origin and were building chosen families instead. The settlement money became the seed funding. Naomi used it to rent a small office space, hire 2 part-time staff members, and set up a website with resources and information. She partnered with therapists who specialized in family trauma and estrangement. She connected with legal aid organizations to help people dealing with financial abuse from relatives. The response was overwhelming. Within the first month, over 1,000 people reached out. They shared stories that echoed Naomi's own experience. Parents who used money as control, siblings who exploited generosity, families who rejected people for being different. Each story was unique, but the pain was universal. Naomi found herself working 12-hour days again, but this time it felt different. She wasn't sacrificing for someone who didn't appreciate her. She was building something meaningful, helping people who truly needed it. And then, 6 months after the wedding disaster, Naomi met Corey Mitchell. She'd gone to one of Second Family's support group meetings, not as the founder but as a participant. She'd been so focused on helping others that she hadn't dealt with her own grief and anger. Her therapist suggested she attend a session specifically for people dealing with sibling estrangement. Corey was leading the group. He was a therapist who specialized in family trauma, someone who'd reached out to partner with Second Family after hearing about the organization. He was in his early 40s with warm brown eyes and an easy smile that made people feel safe. During the session, Naomi shared her story. Not the viral version that everyone knew, but the real story, the years of sacrifice, the feeling of being taken for granted, the devastation of losing the brother she'd raised. She cried in front of strangers, finally letting out the grief she'd been holding back. After the session, Corey approached her. "That took a lot of courage," he said. "Thank you for being vulnerable." "I'm the founder of this organization," Naomi said with a weak laugh. "I should probably have my act together. The best people who help others are the ones who've been through it themselves." Corey handed her his card. "I run a separate therapy practice, if you're interested in individual counseling. I think you might benefit from having your own space to work through this." Naomi took the card, studying his gentle expression. "Do you have experience with sibling estrangement?" "I do. I lost my sister 5 years ago to her addiction and the toxic choices she made. I understand what it's like to grieve someone who's still alive." They talked for another hour after everyone else left. Corey shared his own story, a sister who'd stolen from their parents, who'd lied and manipulated, who'd eventually cut off the whole family when they tried to help her. He'd spent years dealing with guilt and grief before accepting that he couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. "The hardest part," Corey said, "was giving myself permission to move on, to build a life without her, to be happy even though she was struggling." "That's exactly where I am," Naomi admitted. "I feel guilty for not missing Troy more, for being relieved that he's out of my life." Relief is valid. So is anger. So is grief. All of it is part of healing. Naomi started seeing Corey for individual therapy twice a week. The sessions helped her untangle the complicated knot of emotions. The love she still had for the brother Troy used to be, the anger at who he'd become, the sadness for the relationship she'd wanted but never really had. But something else was growing too. Something neither of them had expected. They'd meet for coffee after sessions sometimes, ostensibly to discuss second family and potential partnerships. But the conversations would drift, to books they loved, to travel experiences, to dreams for the future. Corey had a way of seeing her not as a victim or a success story, but simply as herself. "You know," Simone said one day after Naomi mentioned Corey for the third time in 10 minutes, "you should ask him out." "I can't. He's my therapist." "So stop being his client. Transfer to someone else in his practice. Then ask him out." "That's not how it works." "That's exactly how it works. If you like him and he likes you, figure out the ethical way to make it happen." Naomi did transfer to another therapist in Corey's practice. It took 2 weeks of agonizing before she finally sent him a text. "This might be completely inappropriate, but I'd like to grab coffee with you. Not as a client. Just as two people who might enjoy spending time together." His response came 5 minutes later. "I've been hoping you'd say something like that. When are you free?" Their first real date was at a small restaurant near Naomi's condo. They talked for 3 hours about everything and nothing. Corey was kind, intelligent, funny. He asked about her work with genuine interest. He shared his own passions: trail running, photography, terrible reality TV that he watched ironically. "I was worried you'd think I was a mess," Naomi admitted over dessert. "The whole viral wedding thing, the lawsuit, all of it. You're not a mess. You're someone who stood up for yourself and then turned your pain into something that helps other people. That's the opposite of a mess." "My ex-brother probably disagrees." "I'm sure he does. But his opinion doesn't matter anymore." Corey reached across the table and took her hand. "You get to decide who matters in your life now." They took things slowly. Both of them had been hurt before, had learned to be cautious with trust. But over the following months, something real grew between them. Corey understood Naomi's drive to help others because he shared it. He'd seen his own family fall apart and rebuilt himself through helping others heal. "You're good for each other," Simone observed. "He doesn't try to fix you or save you. He just sees you." It was true. With Corey, Naomi didn't have to be the strong one all the time. She could be tired, angry, sad, confused. She could be messy and imperfect. And he stayed anyway, not because he needed something from her, but because he genuinely wanted to be there. Richardson Consulting was thriving too. The publicity from the wedding case, while initially uncomfortable, had brought in high-profile clients who appreciated Naomi's backbone and her refusal to be taken advantage of. Companies wanted someone who wouldn't back down when facing difficult situations. Her reputation shifted from just successful consultant to the woman who stood her ground. Naomi's schedule was full, but it was a good kind of full. Second Family was helping hundreds of people. Her business was growing. She had Corey, Simone, and a growing circle of friends who valued her for who she was, not what she could provide. She hadn't spoken to Troy since the settlement. He'd sent a few emails trying to explain himself, to justify his choices, but Naomi hadn't responded. According to Monica, he was making his payment plan installments on time, which suggested he'd found work. She didn't ask for details. That part of her life was closed. 1 year after the wedding disaster, Second Family held its first annual gala. The event was at a boutique hotel, much smaller and more intimate than the Grand Plaza. The room was filled with people whose lives had been touched by the organization. Estranged parents who'd found community, adult children who'd escaped toxic families, siblings who'd chosen each other after losing their blood relatives. Naomi stood at the podium, looking out at faces that had become familiar over the past months. "A year ago, I thought I'd lost my family," she began. "My brother, the person I'd raised and protected and sacrificed for, chose people who used him over me. It was devastating. I felt completely alone." She saw nods throughout the audience. They understood. But then something happened. "I realized that family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, about loyalty, about showing up for each other not because you have to, but because you want to." Naomi smiled. "I lost one family, but I found another. All of you. This community of people who understand what it means to build something new from the ashes of something broken." The applause was warm and genuine. After her speech, Corey found her near the drinks table. "That was beautiful," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "I meant every word." "I know you did. That's why it was beautiful." Simone appeared with champagne glasses. "A toast," she announced, "to Naomi, who turned the worst day of her life into something that's changed hundreds of lives for the better." They clinked glasses, and Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in years: genuine happiness. Not the exhausted satisfaction of accomplishing something difficult, but the simple joy of being exactly where she was supposed to be, with people who genuinely cared about her. Her phone buzzed. It was an email from someone she didn't recognize, but the subject line caught her attention. "Thank you from the other side." Curious, she opened it. "Ms. Richardson. My name is Veronica Chin. You don't know me, but I know your story. Last year, I was estranged from my entire family after they disowned me for being gay. I was suicidal, alone, convinced I'd never have a family again. Then I found Second Family. Through your organization, I connected with other LGBTQ+ folks who'd lost their birth families. I found therapy. I found community. I found hope. I wanted you to know that what you built from your pain saved my life. Literally. I'm now thriving with a chosen family that loves me completely. Thank you for turning your hurt into help. Thank you for showing me that family is about choice, not chance. With gratitude, Veronica." Naomi read the email twice, tears streaming down her face. "Everything okay?" Corey asked, concerned. She showed him the email. He read it and pulled her close. "This is what it's all about," he said softly. "This is why everything you went through mattered." Naomi nodded, unable to speak. Because he was right. The pain, the betrayal, the public humiliation, all of it had led her here. To helping people. To building something meaningful. To finding people who truly valued her. She'd lost Troy, but she'd found herself. And in the end, that was worth more than any family connection based on blood or obligation. 18 months after the wedding disaster, Naomi sat in Monica's office waiting for Troy to arrive. She'd agreed to this meeting reluctantly only after Troy had gone through Simone, his one connection to Naomi who'd remained neutral. Troy had asked, through Simone, if Naomi would meet with him. Not to ask for anything. Not to demand forgiveness. Just to talk. "You don't have to do this," Monica said, sitting beside Naomi. "You owe him nothing." "I know. But I think I need closure." Troy walked in 10 minutes late, looking different from the last time Naomi had seen him. He'd lost weight. His clothes were less expensive. He looked tired, older than his 30 years. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Troy said, sitting across from them. He didn't try to hug Naomi or touch her. He kept his distance. "You have 15 minutes, Monica said flatly. "Say what you need to say." Troy took a breath. "I want to apologize. A real apology, not the fake ones I sent before. What I did was wrong. What Bethany and I did together was worse. We used you. We manipulated you. We took advantage of your love and generosity, and then we humiliated you when you'd given us everything." Naomi waited. "I've spent the past 18 months trying to understand how I became that person. The person who could betray his own sister, the woman who raised him. I've been in therapy. I left Bethany, She filed for divorce 6 months ago when she realized her family wasn't going to support us anymore without your money. I heard, Naomi said quietly. She hadn't sought out the information, but Simone had mentioned it. I got a job. Nothing fancy, but it's honest work. I've been making the settlement payments on time because that's the least I can do. I've been trying to figure out who I am when I'm not being taken care of by you or trying to impress Bethany's family. Good for you, Naomi said, and she meant it. She wasn't being sarcastic. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I destroyed any trust we had. But I needed you to know that I understand what I lost. Troy's voice cracked. You were the only person who ever really loved me. You sacrificed your whole life for me. And I threw it away for people who saw me as a tool, a prop in their stupid games. You did, Naomi agreed. I don't expect us to be family again. I don't expect you to let me back into your life. I just wanted to apologize for real and tell you that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for everything. The office was silent. Monica watched Troy carefully, her hand near Naomi's in silent support. I accept your apology, Naomi said finally. But you're right, we're not family anymore. Not the way we were. You made choices that hurt me deeply. You sided with people who used both of us. And while I'm glad you're taking responsibility now, that doesn't erase what happened. I know. I've built a new life. A good life. I have people who respect me and value me for who I am, not what I can do for them. I have work that matters. I have love, real love, with someone who sees me as an equal partner. Naomi met Troy's eyes. I don't need you anymore. And honestly, I don't want the kind of relationship we had before, where I was always giving and you were always taking. I understand. But, Naomi continued, if you continue doing the work you're doing, therapy, honest employment, taking responsibility, maybe someday we can have some kind of relationship. Not what we had before, but something new. Something healthier. Troy's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that. Even if it takes years. Even if it's just Christmas cards. I'd like to earn back even a small piece of your trust. Then keep doing what you're doing. Keep being accountable. And maybe, eventually, we'll see. Troy nodded. Thank you. For meeting with me. For not hating me completely. I don't hate you. I'm just done being hurt by you. After Troy left, Monica turned to Naomi. How do you feel? Okay. Sad but okay. He's making progress, but he destroyed something that can't be rebuilt exactly as it was. We'll never have that brother-sister relationship again. The one where I'd do anything for him. And that's healthy. That relationship was one-sided and exploitative, even if it took this disaster to see it clearly. I know. I just wish. Naomi trailed off. I wish our parents were alive. I wish he hadn't had to lose them so young. Maybe things would have been different. Maybe. But you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Troy had to hit bottom to start climbing back up. That's not your fault or your responsibility. Naomi nodded. She knew Monica was right. That evening, Corey took her to their favorite restaurant. They'd been dating for over a year now, and he'd recently moved into her condo. It felt natural, easy, like they'd always been meant to share space. How was the meeting with Troy? Corey asked over dinner. Hard. But good, I think. He apologized for real. He's making changes. But I told him we can't go back to how things were. How do you feel about that? Relieved, actually. I spent so many years being his safety net. It's nice to know that part of my life is over. Corey reached across the table and took her hand. I'm proud of you. For setting boundaries. For protecting yourself. I learned from a good therapist, Naomi said with a smile. Nah, you had it in you all along. You just needed to believe you deserved to be treated well. They talked about Second Family's expansion plans. They were opening a second location in a neighboring state. They discussed Corey's practice and the new group therapy program he was developing. They made plans for a vacation to Hawaii that summer. It was normal. Easy. Happy. When they got home, Corey pulled out a small box from his jacket pocket. Naomi's breath caught. What is this? Before you panic, it's not what you think. Not yet, anyway. Corey opened the box to reveal a simple silver bracelet. I saw this and thought of you. It has a compass charm, because you help people find their way when they're lost. Naomi felt tears spring to her eyes as Corey fastened the bracelet around her wrist. Thank you, she whispered. For seeing me. For being patient. For being here. Where else would I be? Corey kissed her forehead. You're it for me, Naomi. I know we're taking things slow, but I want you to know. I'm in this for the long haul. Me too. 6 months later, Second Family celebrated its second anniversary with a gala twice the size of the first. The organization had helped over 700 people, provided thousands of hours of counseling, and connected hundreds of people with chosen families. Naomi gave her speech, then introduced the evening's special guest, a woman named Lisa who'd found Second Family after being disowned by her family for leaving their strict religious community. Lisa now ran a successful bakery and had built a chosen family of friends who supported her unconditionally. Before Second Family, I thought being alone was my punishment for leaving my birth family, Lisa told the crowd. But Naomi taught me that being alone and being free from toxic people are two different things. She taught me that I deserve love without conditions. The applause was thunderous. After the event, Naomi stood on the venue's terrace with Corey and Simone, looking out at the city lights. "You did this," Simone said, gesturing to the building behind them full of happy, connected people. "You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into this." "We did this," Naomi corrected. "I couldn't have done any of it without you. Without Corey. Without Monica and Dennis and everyone who believed in this vision." "Still," Corey said, wrapping his arm around her waist, "it started with your courage. With you deciding you deserved better." Naomi thought about that night at the Grand Plaza, standing in front of 200 guests and canceling her brother's wedding. At the time, it had felt impulsive, vindictive, maybe even wrong. But it had also been the first time in her adult life that she'd put her own well-being first. That one act of self-respect had changed everything. Her phone buzzed. It was an email from Richardson Consulting, a new client wanting to hire her for a major corporate restructuring project. The company had specifically requested her because, as they put it, "We need someone who won't back down when things get difficult." "Work?" Corey asked. "Yeah. Big new client." "Are you going to take it?" "Probably. But not tonight. Tonight, I'm exactly where I want to be." And she was. Surrounded by people she loved, building work that mattered, living a life she'd created on her own terms. No more sacrificing herself for people who didn't value her. No more accepting scraps of affection and calling it family. She'd lost Troy. She'd lost the idea of family she'd held onto for so long. But she'd found something better, herself. Corey kissed her temple. "What are you thinking about?" "How far I've come. How different my life is now." "Better?" "So much better." The city stretched out before them, full of lights and possibilities. Somewhere out there, Troy was living his own life, hopefully learning and growing. Somewhere, Bethany was dealing with the consequences of her choices. And somewhere, there were more people like Naomi, hurt, betrayed, but ready to build something new. Naomi touched the compass bracelet on her wrist. She'd spent so many years trying to be Troy's compass, his guide, his North Star. But in the end, she'd needed to find her own direction. And she had. "Ready to head home?" Corey asked. "Yeah," Naomi said, taking his hand. "Let's go home." They walked back inside together, past the crowds of people who were laughing and connecting, past the photos on the walls of Second Family members who'd rebuilt their lives, past all the evidence of hope and healing. Naomi had started this journey humiliated and heartbroken on a sidewalk outside the Grand Plaza Hotel. She'd ended it successful, loved, and surrounded by people who truly valued her. She'd learned that family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about respect, reciprocity, and genuine care. It was about showing up for each other not out of duty but out of love. Troy would always be her brother by blood. But her real family, Simone, Corey, Monica, and all the people she'd connected with through Second Family, that family was chosen. And it was real. As they drove home that night, Corey's hand warm in hers, Naomi realized she was truly happy. Not the fleeting happiness of a good day, but the deep contentment of a life well lived. She'd canceled the wedding and gained a life. And she wouldn't change a thing.